Welcome back to Punching Up. I am your host, Maya May. And if you are not familiar with tonight's guest, you are in for a treat because a lot of people say that we need laughter to get through right now, but Marcella Arguello is more than laughter. She is the kind of realness that sometimes makes people go like, "Oh my God, did she just say that?" And the fact of the matter is, yes, she freaking did. And so I want to pull a clip real quick so you can see her comedy.
Our government's worst nightmare. Make some noise for that. Yeah. I am a childless birthright citizen. My family is from El Salvador, Nicaragua, Lebanon, Palestine. I am a woman who would be tested for testosterone if I played sports. This government hates me. Fuck them. Fuck ICE. Fuck the police. Free Palestine.
So Marcella, you might have seen her on HBO with her latest special, Bitch Grow Up, or the album, which I did definitely gonna have to listen to after this, which is The Woke Bully. And so tonight we're gonna talk about dark woke, figure out what the fuck that is, figure out what's going on with the Epstein files, the fact that Colbert Report is, not Colbert Report, the Stephen Colbert Show is canceled, and all that stuff. So without further ado, let's bring her on stage. Marcella, I just got on stage as if we're still doing comedy right now.
We are. We're always performing.
We are always performing. It
Hello.
feels like it now. Welcome to Punching Up. I'm really just happy to have you here. I keep saying to you that I want you to run for office. And so this is actually what this is. It's just me trying to convince you.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But thank you for having me here. I'm happy to be here with you.
So you posted the other day about what you've been asking your audiences, are you radicalized yet?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just super curious. What are people saying?
Well, you ask certain audiences, the response you're going to get. They're like, yeah, we are. But you're also just like, yeah, but when though? When did you get radicalized? How though? So I'm not asking all audiences, I'll be honest about that, but I am asking audiences, and I'm pretty sure this is like a fine question to ask this particular group of people.
Well, the thing is, I've noticed that people I would never have expected to hear it from are now like, fuck the police. Like that used to be something.
I think that's the problem, right? That's why we're at where we're at, because those people, we like you and I, we've been waiting for them.
Right.
We're just sitting here like, okay, are we on fuck the police time yet? All right, now we can have bigger conversations. We can move on from what the other shit,
But do you feel like now it's like too late? Like, because I feel like we're almost past conversation time and into like, it's time to shut this whole thing down time. Where are you feeling like the energy is? Because you're in Chicago now, right?
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And I think that's been part of the problem too, is like, you're really like, you guys are so behind that you're on, you just got on fuck the police time. And we're on like, we're somewhere else. We're somewhere else. And it's just frustrating to be, you're only as strong as your weakest team member, and I feel like that's kind of where we're at. That's why we're at where we're at, because we haven't been able to corral everyone the way I think right-wing conservative point of views have been able to do so successfully.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's like we have a hard time exposing what's been happening in our communities. And so like 2020 was that reckoning because everybody saw the George Floyd video. And I feel like with all of these ICE raids, it's doing a similar thing where a lot of people from the suburbs are like, oh my God, I didn't know you had it like that. Like, didn't know that is what's going on. And it's in people's faces over and over again. Do you feel like this is going to get to a point where people are going to become even desensitized to these videos, or do you think it's going to continue to move the needle?
I think that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I think that it's normal for people to become desensitized in these scenarios, especially like, I can't imagine like watching video game or playing like aggressive Call of Duty video games my whole life and then being like, oh, now I want to be an ICE agent. Like there are certain things that desensitize people in the different directions. So that's what's so curious about, the desensitization of it all is like, what direction are people going to take when this happens, you know?
That, which is fucking wild. So that we should play the Mehdi Hassan clip, because when you want to talk about like, it's pushing this Overton window to the point where it's like, hey, I can just like call myself a fascist and that's cool. So let's check out that clip real quick for people who didn't see it.
Absolutely. I'm just checking. 100%.
Wow. And if that autocrat kills you and your family, you're fine with that?
Well, I'm not going to be a part of the group that he kills, because that's the whole thing.
How do you know?
Carl Schmitt
Autocrats tend to kill everyone, even their own supporters.
Makes this point very well in his work. It's the friend-enemy distinction, right? You
Carl
liberals,
Schmitt, the Nazi theoretician.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't care.
Are you a fan of the Nazis?
I frankly don't care being called a Nazi at all.
I didn't say that. I didn't actually say that. I said, are you a fan of the Nazis?
Well,
the fact that there used to be a point where people would hide in forums, you know,
right?
8chan. This is something, and for people who don't know what Surrounded is basically a show. It's a debate show where they have one person debate around 20 people with an extreme opposing viewpoint. And it's usually something like Snail debates salt, and it's a little bit insane, and it's meant to be very clickbaity. But then you have scenarios that end up looking like this, where there are conversations with fascists. So Marcella, when you see this, like, have you been having? I'm curious. Are like people doing jokes about this already at shows? What like are?
Well, I've had the week off, which is nice.
Congratulations.
So I'm not sure, and I'm sure that they are. I'm just like, it's really shocking that we, like what you said, like people used to hide in you know, message boards and forums, and now they're just they're so emboldened because they've been, you know, reaffirmed by so many people in those forums that they feel like, no, this is like a real belief that I have. And he's right. There are people that agree with him. That's why there's so many people there and cheering him on. But yeah, I don't, yikes. That's where I'm at with it. I mean, I don't even know. It's also, can we talk about how problematic it is that Mehdi Hassan is doing? He's just really promoting these viewpoints. Like, did you watch Opus with Ayo Edebiri on HBO Max?
No, I didn't see it.
It's a great movie. I strongly recommend everyone to participate in viewing it, because it basically talks about this. Which is like, all we're doing is platforming these fascists, which is, I mean, that guy's probably going to get more followers, probably going to get more homies, probably going to get more support, more financial support.
I was going to say, I'm not sure if he's the one that got fired and then went on GoFundMe.
Oh yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what happens, right? And that's what's happening. And I think that's my biggest issue with this, is like, that is how we continue to perpetuate spreading the good word of fascism is, you know, platforming these guys. And even us talking about it is like, okay, you know, like, this is like getting nauseous. But that it is also important for people to see how flagrant it's all becoming. And yeah, I mean, I can't imagine writing a joke about their particular situation, because I'm just like, this sucks, you know?
Right. And that's the thing. Part of the reason I stopped doing comedy as much as I was doing it before is because I was kind of like, we shouldn't be laughing right now. Everybody needs to sit in the corner and think about what we fucking done. Like, how did we get to this place? Like, this is a time for serious analysis. But there is a place for comedy right now. Can you talk about what it feels like? Because you've been deep in it this entire time, what it feels like to do comedy now versus like when The Woke Bully came out. Like, I re-listened to it today and I was like, this shit is still so timely.
Isn't that shocking? I mean, but that's the thing, is that you do have to take the risk to write material when this stuff is unfolding. But I think if you got your fucking ears to the ground, your eyes to the fucking world, then you see all this shit. That's why it's like, you can go back to listen to Woke Bully, and it's exactly as listenable today as it was when I recorded it in 2018. And so for me, I'm like, well, does that make it ahead of its time? Because when I recorded it, I do remember people actively like wanting to promote it, but then like they would crop the part of the track that says, I hate Trump, you know, like there's something I noticed. And I was like, ooh, I don't think I could be friends with her, because that's letting me know she's a centrist at best. And so now I'm definitely like pivoting into, I'm not going to write jokes. I'm just going to say, fuck Trump, fuck the government. Like, if you believe that shit, I fucking don't want to make you laugh, and I hope you don't enjoy my set. Like, that's my perspective of how I handle shit. But that's me. I've always been a little more extremist, a little more ahead of the, you know, of the way the mainstream is thinking, which is the job of the comedian, right? You're supposed to stay ahead of people in front of you that you're performing. That's why you have the microphone, allegedly. But doing comedy now is interesting because people they're dying for a break. But what I'm finding interesting, because I have I can do impressions, and I've started doing this thing because it was fun for a little while where I would just open it up. I go, give me an impression. I'll do anything because I can interpret anything. Like, someone once yelled Elmer Fudd, and I picked up the mic stand and I just like held it like a gun. That's it. Because an impression is whatever you want it to be. That's my whole perspective on it. But something I noticed since Trump got elected, when I say, anyone have an impression they want me to do? People go, Trump. We want to hear Trump. Every single show. And I go, I'm not doing that. Are you guys fucking sick of him? You guys are like, something's wrong with you. I've been straight up like not doing it. I refuse to do a Trump impression. I don't want to learn how to do a Trump impression. I don't think it's funny. I find it very fucking weird that people want. It's like, you're watching women on stage and that's what you want to hear. That's fucking weird. That's weird. So I've been like telling people, like, something's wrong with you if you just yelled that you want to hear Trump.
Well, and I think like he's become our worst obsession. Our guest last week was kind of talking about that, how he's like basically now the most famous man, not just in American history, but all of history.
Yeah.
And people are looking at this, right, from the outside looking in. And that's the thing. This is America is having these conversations out loud as if other countries aren't watching us, which
Right.
is a little scary. Like I always think of two things. I'm like, our kids are watching, and people from outside are watching. Like, oh wow, America got real fascisty, like real quick. And so,
which, by the way, is inspiring some people. Like, let's not forget that people are viewing it in one of two ways. They're going, that's disgusting, or that's fucking awesome. And people are now making their little divides, and whether they know it or not, it's happening. It's unfolding in front of them. And that's what I find fascinating. I mean, isn't that the Hamas conversation? You know, like, what are these children supposed to do when all they see is their fucking their world being ruined? Right. It's like, what would you do? You're not going to become a comedian. That's for fucking sure. You know, it's too far gone for that.
Well, and that's so empathy. Part of being a comedian actually is being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, right? Understanding different worldviews and being able to write and relate to different perspectives. And so sometimes, like, we have to think, like, if MAGA, someone grown up in white evangelical Christianity, that's all they see, that's all they know, of course they think the things they do because it's what they've been surrounded by. Sure. If they're growing up in Palestine, it's literally, as you said, like, this is what they know. And so we have to stretch that empathy muscle sometimes in ways that is very uncomfortable for people, because, and I try to do it with all, in all directions, because I always think, like, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, like they're like aggressively white. And I always think, like, I could have turned into Candace Owens. Like, what, how did Candace end up who she is? And so I'm always very curious about how people end up thinking and doing and believing the things that they do. So one of the things, one of your call outs from, I think this is from the Woke Bully, you said, if you don't look out for people when shit pops off, your word ain't shit.
Isn't that true?
And things are popping off, like, right. I mean, it doesn't pop off more. I mean, it's probably going to pop off more than it's popping off now.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, so Chicago and LA are very different, but very similar in many ways. But a lot of the heat has been on Los Angeles as far as ICE raids. But as far as protests go, are you seeing what you feel like you need to see, like what needs to happen in Chicago? Are people getting out in the streets?
No, I don't think, I mean, it's nice to see the protests happening in Chicago, but I will also say, it's such a bummer that the bluest cities and states have to lead the way, because you're just like, man, we need everybody, all hands on deck on this shit. So, like, obviously I'm glad that Chicago is doing what they're doing, but they also, again, to almost like, I guess, mirror what I just said. They're almost like getting ahead of things because the ICE shit hasn't been I mean, it's out of control in Los Angeles. And it's like, it's trickling in here in Chicago, but people in Chicago don't fuck around. And so I feel like the protests are nice and juicy and large, which is nice. In the same way that the protests in LA are nice and juicy and large, but what's happening in LA is also fucking big and large and scary. And so it almost feels disproportionate. Like it feels like all of California should be protesting. It feels a little insane to be in Chicago while this is happening in California as a born and raised Californian. That's been the hardest part for me is trying to like, what I feel insane watching this on my screen. The same with the wildfires, you know, it just feels insane to like the 1 year I leave California, there's all this shit going on that I know I would be all up in the mix if I was there. And God, I don't even know what you just asked me, but it's been interesting watching, and it does feel a little uneven just across the nation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and I think you're right about like it shouldn't have to be just blue cities and blue states leading the way. Like I do like what I'm seeing with a lot of the governors with what they're doing. What's interesting to me about California is the whole of, you know, there are plenty of red districts and areas within California, right? So it's
great. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you know, I'm like Huntington Beach, stay away. It's a very scary place. But I was wondering if geographically there might be an issue to it. And you brought up a good point. Like Chicago does not mess around in the sense that Chicago has guns in a way that Los Angeles does not. You know, I lived in Woodlawn for a year. I was in Woodlawn for only a year, and I saw one person get killed literally in front of my face, not like a block away. It was a block away.
Very close.
But close enough that I called 911 and was like, this just happened. And then also in front of my house. And so it feels like they're using LA as this kind of experimental place to see what they can kind of get away with. I was concerned that it was going to expand, but I feel like they haven't been as successful in LA as they would like to be.
I don't think they realize how gainfully unemployed people are in LA right now. There's a lot of people, not in an insulting way, but just in terms of, let's think of entertainment. A lot of the double strike affected a lot of people. A lot of people are still not working. I'm not going to talk about the natives of Los Angeles, but I just mean people in the Hollywood industry. I know plenty of people who wish they were working and they're not. They're just like, fucking, I'm going to go to this fucking protest and I'm going to go down the block because I heard there's fucking ice raids going on. Let me go do that. And I love that because power in numbers, right? It's intimidating. Yeah, guns are the most intimidating. It's why they're not targeting criminals, right? And they're only targeting certain neighborhoods and certain businesses. It's very obvious what is happening in Los Angeles, but I do agree that Chicago does have a leg, an arm, and some heat over LA. I completely agree with it. And I do think that that's what has contributed to the disproportionality. But it feels like LA is just the experimentation. I also feel like because the governor in Chicago, in Illinois is he's so rich that you can't fuck with him. Like it's like one of the few billionaires. I'm like, keep him in office. He's one of the few that's doing what he should be doing, and he's fucking strong arming, and he has the fucking money to talk shit, which is Trump's only form of listening.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Pritzker because yes, eat the rich, hate billionaires, all of those things. But if they're going to have their billionaires, we need our billionaires too. And what I love is when somebody has fuck you money and they use it for good as opposed to like, I need more.
They got fuck you money to fuck you up. That's what that is.
Yeah. And we need more of that across the board because right now, journalism is being basically attacked from every angle to the point that only independent journalists are able to function. We actually, I want to talk about Colbert. So let's roll. I can't remember if we have the clip. We've got a clip from that. Let's roll it. Or maybe we don't. Let's see. I was like, Sam, CJ, do we have a clip?
Anybody?
Anyone back there?
Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. Hello, my...
Well, I'm going to assume that everybody has.
There it is. Oh, look at those guys. They're having a great time.
Oh, kiss him.
when I rule the world. Oh, nice. Having a couple of cold ones. And that was when I ruled the world. Look out!
Woo! Popcorn shrimp.
Hey, I used to rule the world. Wow!
So a couple of things on that clip. But first of all, it was great to see everybody coming out in support of Colbert, but Stephen Colbert. But also, we're seeing a lot of. It's interesting for me to see a lot of white male comedians all gathering together in the defense of what has arguably been a mostly white male. Not arguably, it just is. It's a white male dominated space.
Yeah.
So as a comedian who had a show, Women Crush Wednesdays, I think that was the first show I did when I came out to LA, was your show at the Improv.
Was it a good one? Was it a good one?
It was a good one. It was a good one. It was a fun one. And I was like, yeah, I think I want to move out here. So can you just were white men, particularly comedians, podcasters, do you think they were part of the problem? So I want to talk about that first, and then I want to talk about censorship and everything that seems to be happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what happened with Women Crush, it got exhausting to be like, nobody's thinking about the women, because I've been doing comedy almost 20 years. Like, I've come from the time where there was only one woman on the show. A lot of these younger women comedians who are just starting out, they have no clue, the concept of that. When they see that, they fucking lose their shit because it's so unusual. And I love that. But I come from the era of it was like me and Ali Wong fighting for one spot in San Francisco. And it was frustrating. And so when I moved to LA, it was like, oh, it's so segregated. I noticed that LA comedy was segregated as hell. So I was like, what if I got that girl from that urban show, and I got that girl from that club show, and I got that girl from, that alternative extra white show. And I was like, and then this girl and whatever, this girl visiting or whoever, I put them all together. Like, why is that so hard to happen? Why? And it's just, people just don't want to put the thought into it. And it's also really frustrating when people don't even catch themselves. They don't catch how their interests are it's literally a mirror of who they are. Mm-hmm. I'm like, and maybe I'm very lucky as a first generation kid who just wanted to consume as much television. I didn't care. I didn't think of it as like a white show or a black show, Living Single and Seinfeld to me were equal. They were both funny. They were both entertaining. I did not see them as separate. And then I grew up and I was like, oh, there's people that only watch Seinfeld. There's people that only watch Living Single. And then if you're lucky, you find the friends that watched both, or some version of, Martin and Sam and Friends, whatever. And you realize how rare that is. And you realize it's like, oh, fucking no wonder people don't fucking see others when they're, booking their own shit or handling their own business, is because they grew up just like what you said earlier about, some MAGA guy in the middle of MAGA country. Like, why would he want more abundance, diversity? Doesn't know how it would enrich his life. And the reality is, Women Crush, great example. It was a lot of work. It's still a lot of work when I decide to do it, because I still throw, I did one in Toronto recently, and I was like, let's see how this works. And it's like, oh my God, this is a lot of work. This is why it wasn't a weekly show, and I went to monthly. And then I was like, I'm tired of this, because you have to care so much. Going back to the empathy factor, you have to care so much and put in so much work, especially when other people don't or can't see your vision. And it's still a show that I would love to sell, because I think that it's, again, ahead of its time. The fact that Deborah Vance and Ava, from Hacks, Deborah Vance and Ava are like, everyone loves this show. Wow. And it's like, oh yeah, there's plenty of those women in your cities right now doing stand-up.
Well, and that's the thing. It seems like comedy in many ways, obviously it makes sense that it would be a parallel microcosm of society at large. And so I'm seeing all of these white male comedians, late night hosts going, okay, if we haven't fixed the problem there, and we're already now they themselves are getting canceled by the current regime and administration, it's like, oh my God, did we just hit a ceiling for where we can even go? And we're now just going backwards. Like, it's a scary thought to think, because it's like they're supposed to be the protected ones, and then they take us along with them eventually, and eventually we get there. And so for me, watching it kind of fall apart without them ever actually really acknowledging their privilege in having that platform, and opening as many doors as they could to women of color, to Black women, to brown women, to bringing those up. Like, I would have loved to see more of that while they were in that space.
Right.
You know, and so, but it's interesting to me too, to see how these, you know, because we're storytellers, right? Truth tellers. The ones that seem to break through were the Andrew Schultzes and the Theo Vons, and played a huge part in this election loss, and obviously Joe Rogan. So what, like, is the problem that we're making too much content and people are looking at content for their news and shaping who they are? And I say this as somebody with a podcast. I'm like, maybe it's time to cancel all of the podcasts. Do you think that it, like, how did we go from that was entertainment to this is now shaping my worldview, and I'm going to listen to X comedian and vote in this direction?
You know, so when you listen to the woke bully, I'm just going to use myself as an example to navigate this. It's not difficult to listen to, right? It's like pretty easy listening in this, you know, if you're kind of smart enough, and I would argue if you're kind of stupid, you could kind of follow along pretty easily. I think one of the biggest issues with like left-wing comedy or left-leaning comedy, or maybe Democrat umbrella viewpoints, is that when political comedians and entertainers want to be political entertainers and comedians, they get too smart. They sound too smart. And the reason Andrew Schultz and Andrew Tate and all those dumbass men are so popular is because they appeal to 12-year-old boys. They appeal to the stupidest male listener. It's young men. And one of the issues I've always had with, like, I mean, I'll use Mark Maron as an example. He's a great comedian. He's a political comedian, but sometimes you watch him and you're like, how is a 12-year-old boy supposed to like this? And he's not well read. There's nothing wrong with a 12-year-old kid not reading a lot, not fucking being into politics. I don't give a fuck about that. 12-year-old kids shouldn't have any of that on their shoulders. But if you stumble upon something online, what are you going to listen to if you're 12, 13, 14, 15 years old? You're going to listen to the thing that's easiest to listen to. You're going to listen to the thing that's going to use the words that you like to use. And maybe a few words in there. I always think about Mariah Carey and how, like, her music was always so wonderful and easy to listen to, but every now and again, my little ass 10-year-old, I would hear a word nonchalant, or like a word that I was like, what's that mean? And it was like, I learned words, especially as an ESL kid, you learned words through Mariah Carey, but her music, to me, written for little girls, because, and then if you read her memoir, you're like, oh, she's like traumatized from when she was a child. And that's kind of explains some of her music writing, in my opinion. But I always think about how the problem with a lot of political comedians is they want to appeal to their smartest viewer, listener, audience. And I don't think that's good. I think that that's the stupidest thing people are doing. Part of why George Carlin was a great orator, comedian, voice was because he made his shit real fucking easy to listen to. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. And I wish more people cared about people who English is their second language. Maybe they're coming to this country and they're like, how do I, you know, and they're, you know, look, W. Kamau Bell is great, but, like, you know, a 13-year-old boy who's not really into politics is not going to get into it. It just can't. You have to be like the nerdy kid. I listen to W. Kamau Bell, you know, and which is fine. Yeah, not knocking that fool. I've known him a long time. I think he's a good example of, like, it really appeals to a certain type of
Mhm.
audience. Same with Mark. It's like it only appeals to a certain. That's why Bill Burr, God bless him, is
Love
doing
him.
his best to separate. I'm sure you've been noticing he's been separating himself from some of those extreme racist, conservative people that listen to him, because he, I think, maybe is realizing like, oh, maybe I sound so dumb that these dumb people are not actually hearing. Because many of us, because I have homegirls who we've been listening to Bill Burr for fucking 15 years. We've listened to him
Right.
a long time. We've been listening to him though, you know, as intelligent young women. We were like, oh, I hear what he's saying. I know he don't mean that. We also, you know, you grow up with misogynistic men in your life. You just know they talk shit, but they ain't about all the shit that they talk about,
Right.
you know, and they just like to use certain words. And I think that's part of the issue, is that there's no connection, because a lot of liberal left-wing, specifically white, but mostly liberal left-wing people in general, they want to sound all hoity-toity, smart as fuck. They want, and I do my damnedest to write political material that is not that. And I think it's very, very difficult to do that.
Well, that's the comedy that's accessible, like you said, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, because that's the problem with the Democratic Party at large, is this messaging issue, and they're still trying to figure this out, like how to talk. Because I think the reading level, education level, or something like the reading level of most Americans is somewhere, I think the average is around like 11 years old, something incredibly low. And so, yes, it's like people get lost in the mix. The message gets lost in the mix, which brings me to my point that you should either be running for office.
No, because I think it's better for entertainers to spread the good word. I also think that there are comedians who are not very good at what they do and are doing what I'm saying they're doing. They're spending too much time trying to sound smart and clever, not funny. They're trying to sound clever. They're doing that clapter comedy that I don't fucking have never liked. And these are the people who should be, you know, I could list people right now, but I'm not going to, because that'll get me in trouble. But there are some people that and you can see them pivoting into, hey, you're a good example of someone who, like you just said, you haven't been doing comedy because you haven't been feeling it. I think you're a great comedian, but if your instinct in these moments is to pull back, it tells you where you should be going, whether you know where you're going or not. It tells, like, what you decide. For me, I'm always like, nah, I gotta write a joke about this, but it needs to be accessible. It needs to, you know, because there are comedians I love and I think they're great and I love their perspective, but it's like, oh my God, bro, you sound like you're lecturing people. This is like a comedy show, dog, you know?
Yeah, nobody wants to go to a lecture, especially not right now. And I think people are in this weird space right now where they don't know what to do. It's that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. We talked a little bit about it in the show last week, and the psychology of what it means to like be in an audience with people of maybe like minds, of being able to either laugh together or in some ways like laugh so that we don't cry.
Sure.
You know, or maybe all of it together. And so, yeah, I think about like, where am I coming from as a communicator? What do I want to communicate? What do people need to hear right now to get through this moment? And so what you just said just really kind of brings me back to that. And I like, what drives you right now? Because you, as you said, in that one clip, you're a birthright citizen. I mean, this has been your life. Everything that's happening right now, your life is like at the intersection of it. Mine in many ways too. I have a trans daughter. Like, it feels like we have no choice but to just be in this fight, because this fight is our life. But I would love to hear, like, we talked about your dad earlier, and what he went through, just even coming here and raising you here. Can you talk a little bit about like what's driving you and how his life has had an impact on yours and your activism?
Well, what's driving me right now, as a thinking person, I'm very aware of all the sacrifices not just my parents, but my grandparents, my great grandparents, everyone made. I feel fortunate that I have access to the information like that, like ancestral information, because I know a lot of people don't. And I, especially in this moment, because of that particular mix of myself, I have come from people who have fled their governments doing fuck shit, very similar to what's going on now. With the Palestine Lebanese side, my grandparents fled and they went to Central America. And what did they do it for? Because they want to fucking survive. They want their fucking kids to have a fighting chance. And then my grandma and grandpa, you know, raised in El Salvador and Nicaragua, and then he had to leave Nicaragua, and then my dad had to. Both my parents had to leave El Salvador because of U.S. military funding, you know, U.S. funding for military aid in El Salvador to attack their own people. I mean, it's just fucking relentless. It's what's going on now, like I said. And my dad, you know, came to this country, and it was just like, they just wanted us to fucking have a fucking chance. And so for me, it's that. It's like, what the fuck am I gonna do? And I'm also, before I even finish that thought, it's crazy to think that I was going to school and I dropped out, and I thought that was the riskiest thing I could have done at 25. And I look at all my friends who are teachers, everyone's just fucked over. You know, school shootings, the stress of that, school supplies, the stress of that, school lunches, the stress of that. Like, it's not even about teaching anymore. You're lucky if you can teach your kids and you're not having to worry about whatever they're fucking having to worry about themselves. And I think it's crazy that I took a leap of faith on myself, and that eventually my parents supported me. And my thing that drives me is that if all my ancestors were willing to survive, why the fuck am I not pushing shit forward? Why the fuck am I not taking the extra step? Because and like I said, I'm lucky I know my family's background. I also feel lucky that because of my family's background, I know that how common it is for humans to want to survive to the point that they will push back. They will fight their governments. They'll flee from their governments because they're like, nah, fuck you guys. You guys are a mess. There's other places. I'm just going to go do that for a little while. And so it's why be scared? Why have fear? Why, you know, like, what did they sacrifice for if I'm not willing to step up, you know?
Thank you for saying that. I feel like it needs to be said more and 1,000 times over, because every time I hear somebody tell me they're giving up or that they're tired, I'm like, my grandfather was born in 1899.
Yeah.
You know, he had to live through in America. If he had just been like, man, you know, this is exhausting, I'm tired. Like, I get it.
And specifically with that story, part of the reason the shit was so long is that it was a battle with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had to fucking, dude, if we don't do this, if we don't try to escape, we ain't never gonna escape. And it's like, well, brother, we're gonna die. And it's like, we're gonna die either way, bro. Like,
right?
What are you gonna, how are you trying to die? And I think that's the shit, right? That's the shit. Is like, even if they did come from wherever they fucking came from, they were forced to come here. They fled out. And it's like, what are the options?
Well, and I think we're getting to that point now. And I think that's what people are tentative and nervous. And those are the quiet conversations that people are having behind the scenes, I think, are just like, how does this end? Like, how much civil disobedience needs to be had? When is the general strike? Which general strikes are technically illegal, which is interesting to me. But what has to be done? And so that's kind of what I'm watching for now, is like, when I feel like when I see people posting about protests on LinkedIn, because that to me feels like that's the respectable place still, where it's like, what you have is you have like super MAGA people on LinkedIn writing crazy stuff, but what you don't have are moderates or liberals or progressives speaking out against their companies, or people breaking into their board meetings or their Zoom meetings like, this shit's bullshit. Like, it's like, no, nobody's doing that yet. And that to me is when I know, like, people will really get what we're about to lose. And that's the thing. I don't think people have really thought it, allowed themselves to think to what things are going to look like a year from now if we don't fight now. Like, nobody wants to allow their brains to and that's the thing. Like, the, you know, MAGA, they put their crazy ass shit on their vision board about what they wanted for the world.
For the years. They've had their vision board for years. I go back to reference Seinfeld. Even though he's a Zionist, whatever, there was an episode where Elaine is dating a furniture moving guy, and it's the episode where they go to Jerry and her go to a restaurant, and then she finds out that he is anti-abortion, the owner of the restaurant, and she was like, well, I'm not eating here. I believe in a woman's right to choose, right? She leaves. And then she's dating that furniture guy. And then Jerry asks her, well, have you asked, him what his thoughts on abortion are? And she's like, oh my God, no, I haven't. And then she finds out that this guy, and his line is, one day we're going to have enough people on the Supreme Court to change that law. I remember watching that as a child, like, what? And then I was watching it a few years ago, and I was like, oh my God, they waited so long. It's like, because you don't even realize how long they've been waiting for this shit to happen and how much they've been just snakes chilling in the grass. And that goes back to what you're saying. It's like, when do we come together, have mutual understanding? Again, we're all now fuck the police. We all fuck the police, right? It took us, all of us, this long to get to that point. And there's plenty of people who don't believe that still. And it's unfortunate. We should all be anti-prison, but nobody, how do you convince people to be anti-prison when they won't even forgive their parents for hitting them as children? It's like, bro, your dad was stressed. Let it go. Aren't you stressed right now? Are you not stressed right now? Yeah. Imagine if you had a little kid as annoying as you and you had less money. Shut up. Your dad hit you. Forgive him. Can we move on?
Well, and the ability to forgive in our society is not something that we are prioritizing. Social emotional learning, all of those things, the investments that we could be making into our mental health so that we can actually make for safer communities. And these are policies that have been working in the cities that have been run by Black mayors, right? These policies actually work, but instead we're giving billions of dollars to mass incarceration, which is just enriching companies like Geo Group. And so I think when people start to realize that those camps that are being built are not just for people who aren't like them, but are also for people like guy when he said, oh, they're not going to come for me. Autocrats eventually come for fucking everybody.
They come for each other. Look what's happening with Trump and Epstein. Even when they're dead, they're coming for each other.
Yeah. So I think we're witnessing, it reminds me of in Hamilton, like, we're so lucky to be alive right now. Like this is a very interesting, compelling time to be doing comedy in, to be an activist in, to be a Black woman in. This is like, here we are. So I'm so glad that we were able to have this conversation because I feel like this audience doesn't get a lot of this. So I'm glad that they're having a chance to meet you. Where can people find you? I know you're everywhere, but which platforms, what handles?
I'm on, I guess Instagram is like my top place. Marcella Comedy, marcellacomedy.com is my website, but yeah, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky. I'm not really, I wish I was a little more active. I don't think I'm as active as I should be anymore. But Instagram, I'm just posting crap. So just sell tickets because I am on tour. I'm coming to Houston and Lafayette and Louisiana and Cincinnati and Wilmington, North Carolina. So follow me. And if I could leave everybody with one good word, please stop watching so much reality television. For the love of God, it's destroying our society. It's not real. These people, they hire writers. The writers don't get paid. It's a completely fucked up ecosystem that's going on. And I wish people would stop.
Yeah, stop watching reality television and head out into the real world to a comedy show, live comedy, support live comedy, because again, you just named a bunch of vastly different cities. And I think it's really important for people to understand that that's why comedians have their finger on the pulse of the nation, is because comedians are literally inserted in communities and traveling around and hearing from different people. And so that's why we're the truth tellers. So I'm going to include myself in we, because one day I shall do comedy again one day.
That's the thing about comedy. You can always come back to it, you know?
Yeah, this is true.
We always need breaks. It is good for comedians to take breaks. Our brains hurt.
Yeah, I think everybody understands that now because everybody's brain hurts. We're like, please, we just need to take a nap for a good year. But take breaks. Don't give up, y'all. That's all I got to say. Take breaks. We need people out in the streets protesting. I think there's going to be more protests July 26th this weekend. So more protesting, more being in the streets, more sane.
More reading, please, for the love of God. I'm sure your audience reads. I'm sure. Yeah. Also, stop fucking looking down at people who don't talk like you. Ugh.
Yeah, none of that. None of that. All right, we've given you enough assignments. Marcella, thank you for being here. Yes, you're welcome back anytime. And everybody go check out her albums. The Woke Bully is still one of my faves, so go check that out.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'll see you sometime soon, I hope.
Yeah.
Guys, I wanted to say 1,000 things about what we need to be doing right now to take care of ourselves, but I want to say laughter right now and giving us that clarity and that perspective, because that is what comedy does. So please go out and check out Marcella's work, her albums, because she has an incredibly great perspective on so much of what is happening right now. And so if you want to understand why people are saying fuck ICE, why people are saying fuck the police, because of all of this overreach that's happening, because of this absolute and total cruelty that we're seeing day in and day out, this isn't what was on our vision board for America. And so I want you all to think about what it is you want to see in America and ask yourself, are you willing to fight for it? Because the people who came before us were willing to fight for it and march for it and protest for it and get out in the streets and get beaten up for it. And I hate that that's what seemed like we haven't learned our lesson, that we could have protected our democracy by just voting. Our voting numbers are still very, very low. So guys, get out there. Thanks for watching another Punching Up, and I will see you next week.